Alright folks, here it is, the PO-33 KO Knockout. Everyone's favorite micro sampler. It slices, it dices. Okay, yeah, you get it. In this video, we're going to show you some quick tips and tricks for sampling on the KO's drum section. Hopefully you saw my video on the KO's melodic sampler and how it works. If you haven't, be sure to check that out. The drum section is quite different. This section will take whatever sample you record and automatically chop it. This is a really cool feature, but it takes some practice to get it to behave predictably. Before we deep dive into some tips and tricks, there's a few facts to keep in mind. Fact 1. The KO's drum section wants to chop your samples up into 16 steps, no matter how long or short your sample is. Fact 2. The KO chops samples based on transients of the sample. If you're not familiar with this term, a transient is not just a person on the move, but more relevant, it's the peak of the sound wave, typically at the beginning of the sound. It looks like this. Fact 3. The KO has a limited sample time, about 23 seconds. Okay, now for some tips and tricks to help you sample on the KO. Tip 1. Sample 2 bars at a time. Since the KO automatically slices and chops your sample into 16 steps, 2 bars divided by 16 steps gives you 8th notes, which are common in drum patterns. Sampling 1 bar would get you 16th note chops for ultrafine detail, and sampling 4 bars would give you quarter note division, which works for simple beats. Tip 2. Wait after trimming. So you have a drum loop that you want to sample, chop, and resequence. Trimming the sample will likely be necessary as the KO's auto chop isn't accurate. You will need to adjust the start and end points of the sample slices. The trick is to pause after adjusting the trim point and wait for the screen to clear. It will show you the trim points while you're adjusting it, but wait for the screen to clear before you move on. This will save your trim points. Tip 3. Limit the number of samples. If you limit the number of drum samples, it's much more efficient in terms of sample time, workflow, and organization. I like to load 4 samples into each drum sound. It's much easier to trim and saves a lot of sample time. Trim the 4th button to the end of the range. Buttons 5 through 16 will still chop the sound. I just ignore those and only use buttons 1 through 4 when doing this trick. Tip 4. Group sample types per slot. I find it convenient in my workflow to keep similar samples together. So I like 4 kicks in the first sound slot, 4 snares in the second, hi-hats in the third, etc. Tip 5. Delete stock samples. If you want to maximize your sample time, delete all stock samples out of the KO. You do this by holding sound and selecting the sound slot you want to delete. Then press and hold record, then sound at the same time to delete the sample. This will get you the full 40 seconds of sample time. And don't worry about deleting the samples permanently. You can always do a factory reset and the samples are back. So that's it for our tips and tricks on the drum sampler section. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe for more tasty treats. Also, let us know in the comment section what other videos you might find helpful. Thanks for watching.